Howdy, lieutenants and economists.
The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Asshole Consulting, how you kids doing? It's time to get more videos done. The never-ending litany of videos that must be done. The contribution of GDP will continue. Mr. Clary, can you give me your opinion on this video in video response form? How much? And it links to a video by Viking Preparedness, which is a gentleman by the name of Pastor Joe Fox. And he has a video titled MGTOWs, Incels, and Modern Women. So I downloaded it, listened to it while I went grocery shopping. And I'll summarize it here, but I'll put it in the links below and pull up my notes. But basically, Pastor Fox's wife ran into the MGTOW community on the internet. She's, oh my gosh, husband, look at this. And Pastor Joe runs a website, VikingPreparedness.com. And he is a pastor, reverend, and he has a congregation. This is just from what I gleaned. And he seems to be more about survival, independence, off-grid living, family, religion, stuff like that. Kind of think Jack Donovan, but with religion and not as ripped and not gay. It's kind of they're out in the woods. They're about survival. They're about family and all that other stuff and being prepared. So he's got a channel and everything like that. But in this video, he's responding to all the MGTOWs and incels and TFLers, total forced loneliness. And he's just shocked. He's like, how is this a thing? How can this be? And this is in the wake of the Santa Fe shooting. I can't keep track of how many mass murdering incels and boys without fathers there are right now. We'll get a supercomputer database to keep track of them later. But he's kind of like, what is this bleeping stuff? Because he's a pastor. And so he goes on to then explain why. One, it's basically inexcusable that there should not be MGTOWs, there should not be incels. These guys are losers. And then he points to that there are good women out there, and he points to his congregation and people out in the country where he's like, look, there are plenty of good girls out here. It's you boys that got to go and up your game, man up, and stuff like that. And yes, if you want to go chase, he doesn't just say man up and that's it. He admits, look, yeah, if you want to go to the city and chase the party girls, yeah, you're going to get slop. But in the meantime, you should go and look for girls here in the country or in my congregation. He keeps citing his congregation, like, I see masculine men, I see feminine women, and they're going to get together, and da-da-da. And that was his take on it, and this gentleman wants my opinion on Pastor Fox's take. And so my opinion is one of anyone being newly introduced to this world of MGTOW, and especially if you decide to go down the warped rabbit holes of incels and TFLers and MGTOW level 23 with golden clusters level 5.3. And you get into that world. And so I could see where it's the initial shock, but what I think he lacks is not even the context, although context is one thing that I'll be going into, but the history of MGTOW and kind of to know what its pathology has been, where it came from, where it's going, what it is now today, so that when he goes and does a video on it, he maybe understands where all the hate is coming from and where all the support is coming from, or perhaps some silence from the real MGTOWs who have truly gone their own way and they're not part of the internet community. So let's go through where he's wrong and then where he's right and what my criticisms of the response is. Understand, I have nothing but the utmost respect for him. I agree with him given the amount of information he has, but hopefully maybe he watches this, one of you guys would forward this to him, and he's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on there, and so maybe at least he can understand. I don't know if it will apply to his congregation or the people in his immediate circles, but at least, because he's looking at his congregation, looking at this, but then he's like, did you see this thing on the internet? Well, the internet is a dark and scary place, but it is also not this very specific niche that Pastor Fox lives in. So, all right, first, dude's old. Dude is very old. I mean, he's not decrepit old. In great shape, could kick my ass. He's special forces. Look at his background. Very interesting man. It don't change the fact that he is old. And this is even a problem I face because I'm no spring chicken myself. And because the plurality of you, or at least the disproportionate percentage of you, are younger men, you're asking for dating advice. God, I haven't dated since the aughts. I've been off the front lines in the battlefield for a long time. And one of the things I constantly worry about is, okay, am I out of touch with the kids? And so I painfully at times will watch videos of modern day younger women talk like, oh, I watched this video on millennial girls dishing the dirt on what they want on a life. Ugh. And I'm like, yep, things are pretty bad. More recently, what was it? Some gal tweet. I don't pay attention to the royal family, but there was a wedding with the gal and the guy, and Paul Joseph Watson highlighted a tweet from one gal that got something like 30,000 retweets, where it's like, see, if you just hold out, you'll get your prince. And it's okay. I understand stupid people are going to say stupid things, but it got so many. I don't think I've seen it. I don't know if anything's gotten 30,000 retweets. It was insane. And I'm like, is that really what girls think? That you just hold out and you're going to get a British prince? There's only 2 of them. And they're both married now. There's 3.5 billion women. The math don't add up. But you girls are going to hold out for the prince. Then I see the careerism and the feminism. And admittedly, now Pastor Joe is like, all right, but that's not in the rule. I know it's not in the rule, but we're talking about the vast majority of the Western world, which unfortunately is urbane or suburban. It's not the majority of the population now lives in city centers. And so when boys go out, even if they come to the rural areas, the majority of women they're going to run into, whether they actually go to the city, they run into a city girl, that's it. This is the indoctrination and the education and the programming that they get. So this is where I am always, trying to keep my fingers on the pulse. Like, is it really that bad? And I try and suss out, the sensationalist Daily Mail articles where it's like, okay, that's just gossip and juice and BS. But then I'll tell you, like, hey, is it? Like, yeah, it is. It's pretty bad there, Captain. It's like, wow, it was even worse than when I was there. Hell, and then even some of my friends who date younger, I'm like, he's like, oh God, you have no idea. I mean, it is brutal. Now, I'm at least trying to keep tabs and a communication line open to the front lines. Like, hey, Sergeant, what's going on? Oh shit, Captain, I'm getting the hell of shelled out of us. God, Captain. Don't hold that line, Sergeant. But I think he's inoculated from the rest of the world. I think he is so removed based on age. And yeah, he may talk to the younger people in his congregation, but he has not made any efforts to actually go and see what it's like for the average 20-year-old boy out there to date. All right? So I think he doesn't realize how bad it's gotten. Now, this isn't to say it's not bad for the women. Women have their own set of problems with pajama boys, and the pastor is 100% correct on that one. These SJW, MGTOW, incel, soy boys. But I think he's very far removed based on age from these kids. The other thing, selection bias. Kind of alluded to this before. He is very focused on his congregation. That's fine. Well, look at my congregation. Well, yes, but that's anecdotal evidence. That is not what the world is facing right now. It's like being in Switzerland during World War II. Well, I don't see any bullets flying over here. Everything's hunky-dory. It's like, hey, yeah, go 100 miles that way. You'll see. Yes, I'm sure in the rural areas, especially, you want to talk about a very small Venn diagram overlap. Not only rural, but religious. And that small little piece right there, maybe you can see my pupil. That's a very, very small and specific niche of women and men, young boys and girls, that he's talking about. So when he points to his congregation, these are religious-going young boys and girls who are probably a little bit smarter than the average bear, think a little bit ahead. Oh, we're going to do survivalists. They're probably more traditional. Let's raise families. So, and that's good and fine. He goes, well, look at these boys. They're splitting wood. And look at these guys. They know how to, fix a small motor on a chainsaw. Well, yeah, those boys. Now, compared to the rest of the population, no, it's horrible. So his not only his age removes him from what's going on in the larger world around him, but his selection bias, looking at rural only, and then within that rural, his congregation. Well, yeah, Mormons are not Mormons. Although I guess Mormons too. The Amish, it's almost like that. It's like the Amish, well, Jebediah hasn't gotten addicted to video games. It's like, yeah, Jebediah hasn't, because he's on the plantation or settlement or whatever they call it. And when these boys go out, here's another thing. It's not the 1800s anymore. Most of the dating done now is done online. So by that point, rural, urban, and suburban boundaries are eradicated. One of Pastor Fox's congregants, male congregants, will find a girl on OkCupid in the next town over, and now she's secular. She wants to get her master's in puppetry. She has a bunch of student debt, and she's whatever, and she lives in the city. So there's a lot more mixing of these worlds than he thinks. So even though he says, well, no, in this community, well, yes, in 1965 when we were all watching Gunsmoke and the same, yes, that would have applied. But now the majority of dating, especially among younger people, is done online. So his selection bias, again, disconnects him from this effective world of MGTOW. And then, as I said before, I think he's new to the concept of MGTOW, so let me go through the history of MGTOW so you can maybe understand it, and I think he's unaware of the pathology. MGTOW didn't form in a bubble. It did not. It formed with guys my age, I'm now in my 40s, where we step back after, sometimes decades long, saying, you know what? It ain't acceptable to be stood up for a date. It ain't acceptable to have all this drama and crying. None of this was ever acceptable. We weren't doing anything wrong. You find out there was all a front and all this. Just the amount of BS and lies we were told, and sometimes it really irks. One time, what was it? My mom. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to point it out, Ma. My mom, I remember saying, yeah, I used to nag, but it didn't work. So then I'm like, so you were consciously nagging? So you admit you knew what you were doing? And a lot of gals they'll fake it. Like, well, I didn't know. And crying and all that. No. What men of my generation and successive, I didn't say baby boomers, had to tolerate in terms of female behavior, in terms of dating, romance, courtship, by and large was completely unacceptable. And there wasn't anything wrong with us. We didn't need to play the sensitive 90s man. It's not toxic masculinity. It's just simply unacceptable, inappropriate behavior. And the great one himself, Sin Lib Soch, a little bit disagree with him the most, but if you want to hear a great chronicling of unacceptable behavior, is where women say, yes, I will go on a date with you. And then they flake at the last moment. Now, you may say, well, that's just women. That's how it goes. Ha, ha, ha. No. You want to be treated equally. You said X. Now, is your word worth anything? And in statistically speaking, 70% of the cases, it's not. This is why, girls are like, oh, it's like, well, this is why I double booked dates back in the 90s. This is why I always signed up for an extra shift, because you could almost bank on the girls not showing up. So, short version is you throw in divorce, of course, this utter hypocrisy of behavior, this unacceptable level of behavior. Men just got sick of it. They burnt out. And they said, I'm done. Being by myself, and not to mention, I'm going to die soon, and I've wasted my youth chasing girls to really no avail. Before I clock out at 65, 70, 75, I'm going to go enjoy life. Because to be frank and honest, that snifter of scotch is a known quantity. It's a bond. It's a reliable bond. It pays 4% interest. I know that this scotch is not going to fail me, and I will sip it and I will enjoy it. I know that motorcycle ride out to the Black Hills or Beartooth Pass is not going to fail me. I know I'm going to have a good time. It's a known quantity. I am done investing time, resources, labor, effort, not to mention emotion and psychology, into women and getting not only an unknown rate of return, but usually a negative rate of return. Done. A life by myself is more rewarding and less stressful and better than one with a woman. And he even says, Pastor Joe Fox says, man is not meant to be left alone. Yes, true, according to the Bible, and I would agree even on secular terms, that is correct. Men and women are made for each other. Unless such a sizable statistical percentage of one of the sexes becomes undateable, that being by yourself is the actual best option. And we can again talk about the the cult or the camp or the settlement that Pastor Joe is in. It's a very small percentage. And when you're it's kind of the problem that the Chinese face, because they're killing off all the girls. Now there's a shortage of women. And in the Western world, there kind of is another shortage of women because most women are not programmed or conditioned to be marriage material. They're not conditioned to be wives or mothers. They're conditioned to be workers. They're conditioned to be employees. They're conditioned to be corporate cogs. But they are not conditioned to be loving, supporting wives and mothers. They just aren't. And so we could talk on anecdotal or specific examples, like yes, in religious circles, there probably is a match. On the nationwide, Western civilization-wide basis, no, there is a huge imbalance. Although I will admit that most of the men are not marriage material either, but I'm trying to explain MGTOW. We can explain the female MGTOWs later. So anyway, that is the impetus and the reason and the cause for men going their own way. It wasn't until I'm done, checked out, tapped out, I'm done. Got me an armbar, never going on the mat again. It wasn't until then also that I did find a girl, which is not necessarily ironic, but almost the way it would go. But I think he's being way too harsh, in part because he's been married 35 years. 32, courted her for 35, or married and dating for 35. What was that? God almighty, I think Reagan was in his first... Times have changed. It's changed. So, I'm not joking. I'm trying to be very impartial. It's that bad that men are giving up on their genetic programming and going MGTOW. They are leaving women. They're overriding their genetic programming or their religious calling, however you want to view it. It's so bad and toxic that they are now going wherever. They're going to ride their motorcycles. They're going to hike. I got one guy, he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about going MGTOW just to recoup. Just to recoup. Take a break. Guys getting divorced, they're done. They're done. So I say it's a legitimate movement. I was one at a time. We didn't really necessarily have the term 12, 13 years ago. But after a while, it's self-respect. Inevitably, it's self-respect. Like, yeah, you know what? No. I just got a horror dating story from a buddy of mine, and I'm like, yeah, that wasn't worth your time. I mean, it was entertaining, but it wasn't worth your time. And so I think that's where Pastor Fox is wrong, is he doesn't understand that there is legitimate reason for men jettisoning out, abandoning ship, going on strike, whatever you want to call it. They're split in town. And I think they have every legitimate reason to be. Now, that being said, let us talk about the divorce or the split between MGTOW and what I like to call virgin towels, which is a patented term by me, and it really pisses off the virgin towels. There is this group of men that went off. I would be considered one of the old one. We're done, tapping out, gone. Well, the problem is this philosophy of going your own way and that I have my own life to consider and becomes very attractive to a group of inferior men. And what I mean by inferior men is men who are too lazy and too cowardly to go and approach women. And this was already going to get, you can already hear them getting their panties in a bundle over this, but let me explain it for the sake of Pastor Fox. These men who had their genetic programming overridden, it was so toxic an environment, you give up women, think about that. You give up sex. You don't give it up, but you're just like, it's not the number one thing anymore. Those are some powerful forces. And these guys went through hell to have it where they can consciously override with the big brain the little one. That's a pretty scorching, harsh environment. Right? So they paid their dues. They went up to girls, they got shot down by the others, they married girls, they got divorced by girls. They endured pain and suffering, became hardened, and moved on out. Then you have typically younger men, boys, who aren't even old enough yet to have much of a dating career, but they're so weak, so cowardly, and so afraid that they look at this MGTOW. Once it got determined there was this not religion, but a movement or a cause that they could glom onto and use it as an excuse to excuse their laziness, their cowardice, and their afraidness of women. Because let's be very honest, the guys who were true MGTOWs, we weren't perfect, but we at least put forth the effort. We would hit the gym. We would ask girls out. We would get shot down. We would get stood up. We would have kids. We would get divorced. We went through the war to earn the chevrons on our sleeve to say, yeah, we did do that. Now, here comes a bunch of West Point graduates, haven't even dipped their toe in a fucking war. And they're like, oh yes, theoretically, oh yeah, and it's painfully obvious. It's painfully obvious. If you look at these virgin TOWs, these neo-MGTOWs, if you want to call them that, you're only going to see them in one of two ways. Some fake avatar, because they don't want you to see what they look like, or if you do see them, they're fat and ugly and lazy. Right? That's what it is. And they use MGTOW as an excuse for their laziness. That is, and I've caught all sorts of flack because I'm right. I'm correct. I'm over Berlin. I'm getting shot at by flak. I'm hitting the target. There is, and that now, what percentage of it is, I don't know. But I would have to say, as time has gone on, these virgin TOWs, as I like to call them, have co-opted the MGTOW movement. Because the real MGTOWs, you know what? We got more important shit to do than sit there on the internet and fuck around and obsess about how much we hate women. And that's kind of the telling, that's how they tell, that's how they give away their hand, is, all right, you're giving up on women. Not hate women, you've given up on women. Right? The real MGTOWs, what do? They go do whatever. Hike, bike, run, do, jump, start businesses. They go and move on with their life. The virgin TOWs obsess about women. Or they go shoot up some women over at some schools. These incels and TFIs. And they come up with grades and classes and incels and excuses. And all they do is obsess about women. Which is where Pastor Fox's wife, I think, walked into, was one of these discussion groups or forums or video channels where all they do, for guys who really don't want to have anything to do with women, they realize, wow, they sure do obsess a lot about them. In other words, what has happened is kind of like feminism. Whatever original feminists there were about getting women the right to vote and equal treatment, those gals are long gone. Well, if for any other reason, it's been so long since the Elizabeth Stanton days that they're dead. Feminists now have, it's been taken over by an extremist group, by ideologues, by zealots who have nothing else in their lives. And MGTOW, I would say, modern day, not real MGTOWs, but modern day, has more or less been co-opted by this group of do-nothings. Now, are there some legitimate participants in the MGTOW community? I would say yes, like for example, Sandman, Turd Flinging Monkey. I occasionally glance their channels every once in a while just to see what's going on, but the irony of being in social media is that you don't have enough time to consume enough social media yourself. Just to kind of like, oh, is that what's going on? Again, kind of keep a tab on things. I think they're a little bit more reasoned and they highlight things and serve as a warning, as a beacon for any new guys that come in off the battlefield who lost an arm or a leg. But unfortunately, what your wife probably found there, Professor Pastor Fox, is she happened upon this virgin TOW community, even though they'll go by the word MGTOW. So what the history has been is, yes, there was this original valid movement of MGTOW. Those men went on, but following on their coattails, there were a bunch of opportunists who found it as a convenient excuse so that they wouldn't have to hit the gym, they wouldn't have to work hard, they wouldn't have to go to school, they wouldn't have to leave the mother's basement, they wouldn't have to be attractive to women. If you look at some old school MGTOWs, like, yeah, hit the gym. Perfect example. All right, you want to see a real MGTOW? You want to see a real MGTOW who is not succumbed to the bullshit? Look up Entrepreneurs in Cars, Rich Cooper. You can find him on YouTube. And you'll find there, again, a slightly older gentleman than me, not old. Dare don't say he's old. But he's in shape, he's got a job, he doesn't hate women, he's relatively new, relatively recently divorced. That is an example of a real MGTOW. Or Terrence Popp, that's another one that you might want to check out. So that would be, but they are not obsessed about hating on women and this and that and using it as an excuse. Plus they show their face, that's the other thing. And they could beat the ever-living crap out of you. So that is legitimate. But what, gosh, darn well near 90% of what you're seeing on the internet nowadays, that is these navel-gazing mopers that sit there and just look at their navel and, oh, you know, women don't like men because they don't like us for us. It's eerily similar to how feminists are like, you don't like us because you should like us for our personality and who we are and our ear gauges. And I was like, no, I want you to be hot. So that's where, quote, MGTOW is. And so, yeah, if you run into, and here's the problem, unless you're going to look at dates, you don't know what is old school, traditional, classical MGTOW, where it's the real men who went off and did their own thing, and what's a bunch of little fucking basement-dwelling trolls and incels and TFLers who are going to go shoot up a school or something. And you can't, unless you like, oh wait, hang on, that was made in 2008. That's when, those are the founders. And now you have this bastardized version of a religion effectively growing. And it's very attractive. It's very attractive to men who were raised by single mothers. Dads weren't around. Dads were around, but they were spineless. They didn't provide any male role models. Like the guy, the 30-year-old living in his freaking parents, and they got to evict him. I mean, there is no shortage of candidates that can be attracted to this religion. None. The Virgin Tau community has a long life expectancy for it because we keep... And the way I see Gen X parents, oh my God, how they're raising their kids. Let me tell you this, Virgin Tau and MGTOW have a long life expectancy, and so does Asshole Consulting, which if you didn't know is the company I run, but that's of another matter. So hopefully that explained to not only Pastor Fox, but other people, kind of, you know, not where you're wrong, but where it's like, yeah, there's some big missing holes that you're missing. Maybe that kind of brings you up to date on what's going on. So let's kind of summarize here where to answer the client's question, where Pastor Fox is right and wrong. He is correct in that modern day men are pathetic. Maybe not in his group, maybe not in the rural, certainly not the TJ Martinells out there. Look them up, tjmartinell.com. There are some real men. I know many young millennial boys, men, who are real men, more masculine than me. You know, they can run up the mountains better and climb more and bench press more as a percentage of their weight. There certainly are. But in its totality, Pastor Fox is right. Most men, we'll complain about women all day, but let's admit, do you want to marry Pajama Boy? Did you see the Try guys shoot guns? As much as I try and say, okay, boys, what's it like dating the women? I go and I got a couple friends that have like daughters that are like teenagers now, and I'm like, what's it like? I'm like, they don't even date. I'm like, why would you? It's like, what is that? I was a nerd, but at least like I had some shape to me. Good Christ. He is also correct in that the warped rabbit hole of incels and total forced loneliness and these guys who are like, just wait until the robot sex dolls come online, man. It's like, do you hear yourself? Yes, he is 100% correct that those are losers. But he is also incorrect in his estimation or the assessment of the number of quality women out there for men. And this goes back to the original MGTOWs. And I've been trying to think of a methodology to calculate the percentage of marriageable men and the percentage of marriageable women based on ages, and it's almost impossible. But if we are to go based on dating history and just look at, and I dated a lot. It's rare. It's less than 1%. It is less than 1%. What percentage of the men is marriageable is another. But in my dating days, and this is going back, this is before the social justice warrior shit hit, it's less than 1%. And I'm not saying, oh, well, I like blue eyes. No, I mean, like, do you have a job? Do you got student loans? We've gone through the Clary relationship test, 17 points. A lot of these, some of them are negotiable. Others of them are just deal breakers. You're like, where's your dad? Do you have student loans? Are you a Marxist? These are, no, I'm not marrying him. No, I'm not dating someone that has student loans. No. So I think he overestimates the number of quality marriageable women that are out there. And I think he very much underestimates the literally trillions, certainly multiple trillions over the decades that have been spent and invested in, I don't want to say brainwashing, but I don't know what other word, channeling, programming, conditioning women into putting above all else, above their fellow man and their own selves, their career and their education. You can't even say career half the time. Half is just an education. I got a master's degree in philosophy. What the fuck do you do with that? Sit on your ass and ask for more government money? I mean, it is sad. It's genuine abuse. It's horrible. It's criminal what we've been doing to women. Anyway, I would argue, though, there's a huge deficit between the marriageable amount of men and the marriageable amount of women. I'd say there is a deficit because at least what you'll find in the red pill, MGTOW, manosphere, whatever, right, alt-right, libertarian, simply non-leftist community is the men will at least acknowledge, or some segments will acknowledge, that women demand a good-looking man who's in shape. We'll say, yeah, you got to work out, you got to do this, you got to make money. We acknowledge reality. So, whereas if you look on the opposite side of feminism, they never say, what do men want? I've never once heard a feminist say, well, what do men want? Oh, they want big tits, a tight ass, long legs, and long hair. Well, let's give it to them. They've never, he should do this, he should like me. And they criminalize masculinity. So I'm going to bet there's a huge deficit, that there's more marriageable men out there than there are marriageable women. So I think he's overestimating the number of quality women. I know his assessment of the modern day dating battlefield is wrong. In part, 2 reasons: he's old, he's so far removed, he hasn't dated in a long time, and he is again in kind of a section off part of the world that is not part of the rest of the world. It's idealistic. It's his world. I can understand that. It would help his sheep within his flock, but it is not going to apply outside of that very small community. So he's incorrect there. And then I would then recommend that, okay, yes, there's what the advice you give to your community, because he's got a good following, but it would help to advise them about the realities outside. And then also to think outside the environment, because, again, your boys, male congregants or whoever's following, your followers, they're not just looking at across the pew at Susie Q. They're online. And you're wiser and older and smarter, no doubt about it. You're not going to get them to not go to the city. You're not going to get them to not go and check out the hot chick. Look, they're so heavily indoctrinated with advertisers and girls and this and that. You're not going to keep that moth from that flame. But warn them, prepare them, arm them. Say, hey, there's some crazy MGTOW guys out there, but there's some elements of truth. And if we look at modern day dating, and I think he's kind of aware of some of the drawbacks and risks of dating modern day women, just say, hey, go out there, but here's what I want you to do. And I've argued with this problem myself, and that is passing on wisdom. And not passing on wisdom, getting the kids to freaking listen to it. And they don't. That's why I charge. But I think the best you can do, because people they're not going to believe you. Until they live it themselves and they suffer pain, they're not going to believe you. They think they're going to get lucky, or you're removed, or you're old, you don't know what you're talking about. So the best you could do is tell them what's going to happen. Say, look, this is what's going to happen. Here's what the solution is going to be, or here's what the problem is, and how to solve it. And when you're ready to come back, come back to me and we're going to do this. And I think you'll at least earn the respect and trust. You won't be able to jam your wisdom in the brain like, what? Don't chase after the girl with big boobs and red hair and blue eyes? Okay, I won't do that. Shit, I got news for you. I'll still chase, I'm like, well, hey, how you doing? But the best you can do is warn, say, I want you, and they will forget, hey, Mr. Testosterone Boy with your fucking nuts down there overriding you, listen to me, are you paying attention? Film it. I'm telling you right now what's going to happen. So then when the prodigal son returns, you can play the, hey, do you remember this from 3 years ago before you went to the city? Yeah, I told you. And that's how I think you can convey and help out your congregation. So anyway, all right, that was a lesson in MGTOW for Pastor Fox. If you guys got questions, go to AssoConsulting.com, where I, America's older brother, will give you the advice you desperately need. Oh, the Older Brother website, olderbrother.com, will be up and running here relatively soon. I know I keep saying that, but I keep getting more work. I'm not going to get to the golf links. But check out the links down below. New pinup over at my Patreon account, patreon.com/Aaron Clarey, AARONCLAREY. You don't have to donate. You just have to go there and look at this speaking of classy ladies, speaking of 1950s housewives, this gal is dolled up in a beautiful 1950s housewife outfit. And it's not PG, even 13, but it's not G either. It's a cute, damn good-looking thing. Go take a look at it. And if you feel compelled to donate to my Patreon account, who am I to argue? All right, that's it. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.